Clarendon North.
Madam Speaker, my question to the Prime Minister. Can the government confirm whether it has received confirmation that it will get the full payout of the 150 million US catastrophe bond which we undertook? My understanding is that we have received, or the payout is on its way for the 70 million Caribbean catastrophe risk insurance bond. CRIF, the policy. If we get the full payout, Madam Speaker, both would amount to about 35 billion Jamaican dollars. Based on the Prime Minister's initial estimates of between 6 to 7 billion US dollars, which is about 1 trillion Jamaican dollars, even with the relaxation of the fiscal rules, and you might have 2 to 3% of GDP space, we still will have a significant shortfall. So my question to the government and the Ministry of Finance, have we commenced discussions, negotiations, submissions, particularly to the IMF that has a rapid funding facility that would allow us to access money to deal with all the priorities that you spoke about and that the members have raised? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I spent the last 6 days going through the constituency of Northern Clarendon, and the housing stock have been severely affected. So I'd like to ask the Prime Minister if the allocation of $5 million to the constituency, if he believes that is sufficient. We have more than 500 homes that have been affected, more than 100 persons who are homeless and are spending time with friends or family within the constituency, and that needs to be remedied urgently. We also have a road network that was non-existent, but with the rainfall, we now have nowhere to pass in some parts of the constituency. And we have a gully network now, according to Comrade Bunting. And we want to know if, or Member Bunting, I apologize. I want to know if there will be any allocation for special meant to the road network and infrastructure in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. And thirdly, we have 3 communities in Northern Clarendon that are labeled to be flood prone: Anion Town, Anderson Town, and Bagwell. And those were flooded during the hurricane. And Anderson Town and Bagwell is currently inundated, marooned. I had to get into Bagwell by going on a raft on Saturday. I want to know more from a medical standpoint as well, what sort of health support we will put in there, given that we know that mosquito infestation will take place and all the different mosquito-borne diseases that will arrive thereafter. And my last question is, with the drains, rivers, and sinkholes that are in those 3 communities, do we believe that adequate attention and resources were provided for them so that they could have been prepared for the flooding that came? And I would like to understand I would like to understand from the Prime Minister if we're going to be treating those 3 communities, Anderson Town, Bagwell, and Anion Town, in any special way because of the lay of the land and how they are situated. The member from South West Centon is a neighboring constituency and understands the space very well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Next is the member from Westmoreland Western.
Prime Minister, let me start off by saying, Prime Minister, who are you? Oh? Prime Minister, let me endorse a lot of the things that you have spoken about. Number one, Prime Minister, I'm in a constituency where there is almost 1,000 of our citizens have left homeless or without a home. Just total devastation. I hear you spoke about the Fair Trade Commission, and I just want to ask you a question. Well, a statement and a question. The price of gas has almost doubled in Westmoreland. Gas, food, building material, bus, and taxi fare. Now, I would like you to explain to me more or less.
Would you be so kind? Pull your mic a little bit closer to you. I think it may help with the volume.
I would like an answer. I would like an answer, Prime Minister.
So members from St. Catherine Southwest, if persons abide by the ruling, no matter what, the system would work. Because the ruling was that members turn on their mic when they are observed by the speaker in keeping with the standing orders. However, members have chosen to turn on their mics, and once it goes off, you're at the back of the line. So persons complained about meeting the speaker's eye. Hopefully, over a little time, we will get there. We'll get there. So, I've turned on the mic. I'm not seeing it. Okay, the member from St. Catherine South. You'll have to go through the rounds. No. Unless all persons would like to turn off their mics, or maybe the member would like to go and speak from a seat other than your own, and then swap back with the member.
Prime Minister, as I was saying before, in a question, when you speak about the Fair Trade Commission...
Member, your volume is low, so you may want to pull the mic closer to you.
The price of fuel has doubled. The price of food has doubled. The price of building material doubled. Taxi and bus fare have doubled also. I want you to give me an answer to how the government going to work within Westmoreland, Western or the parish of Westmoreland, in stopping some of the abuses which are taking place with our citizens. That's number one. Number two is when you speak to the assessment that will be done. Prime Minister, I want to ask a question. It's hard when you go to a citizen home and the citizen basically is without a roof. I think, and this is just a suggestion, Prime Minister, if we could more or less hire 100 persons in every constituency to go out and start doing the assessment, because it's hard to tell a man who's without a roof that he's going to have to wait until we clear all the roads, until we put all the mechanism in place to ensure synergy and all of that good stuff. So I'm recommending to you, Prime Minister, asking you, would it be possible for every constituency that is affected, for the Ministry of Labour, whoever it is, for us to get some temporary labor to go around and do this assessment? That's two. Three is the shelters. And I speak about the shelter in Townhead and other shelters. There's no bed. There's no food. Persons are sleeping on the concrete. And I'm just wondering if we could pay some more attention to Westmoreland. I don't want to say everything here because the international press is here. So and you don't hear everything out to the public. But, Prime Minister, I'm willing to have a conversation in terms of where we go from here, in terms of how do we help our people. In terms of when you speak to tourism, we have thousands of workers now that are without a job in the tourism sector. The leader of the opposition mentioned some level of compensation for tourism workers. But a couple of weeks ago, the Minister of Tourism came here and he said that under the IDB, there was $1 billion for small hotels to refurbish. And I want to ask the Prime Minister, could a part of that $1 billion be used for grant funding in terms of ensuring that the hotels in the constituency, the workers within the constituency, something can be worked out where between the workers and the hotel, the tourism sector, both work hand in hand in ensuring that we can get up running pretty soon. Prime Minister, the level of devastation / destruction that is in Westmoreland. I heard Member Vaz speak to just the level of trust in terms of the members of parliament and the government. I want to work with the government in ensuring that we help all citizens. And it's very important. And it's very important from the side of the government also that you do everything in your powers to ensure that there's a level of fairness and there's a level of honesty in working with the members of parliament in Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, or wherever, in ensuring that our people get the necessary needs and wants in going forward. Thank you.
Member from St. Catherine South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, I too join in welcoming this statement and much of what you have addressed. A couple of questions, Prime Minister. One that has been raised regarding the extension of the custom duty exemption for a further month. But a couple of things, I never got them. One, if items are shipped before the expiration date, would they qualify for the exemption? What are the details of before the expiration, if they would benefit from it? Goods in transit. Okay, fine. The second question on that point, Prime Minister, there are a list of items clearly set out in the customs public document, but things such as heavy equipment, where you have external parties who are prepared to come to the country, bring their own equipment, heavy equipment, to be used with intention to re-export them upon the completion of their, after 1 year, year and a half, and so forth. Will considerations be given for those items critical to the recovery and rebuilding that don't fall in the published list that we are aware of? Next question, Prime Minister. I heard in the media the big cry of many in Western Jamaica about being able to access cash. One quotation is that cash is king. Nobody is selling any item on credit. Many of the digital platforms are down, from connectivity, electricity, etc. And cash becomes the only currency of transaction. In light of this national situation, where cash is critical to that side of the country, can some consideration be made with the bank's financial institution to, one, have banks in close proximity to those areas, and within those areas where there's electricity, etc., be open for extended hours within and around those areas that are so badly affected? Secondly, in regards to cash for all the financial institutions to waive fees and withdrawal of cash from their account for this in this circumstance. ATM machines, there are charges. With in-bank withdrawal, there are charges. For internal transfers, there are charges. It is inconceivable that the financial institution will not be willing to give favorable consideration, and worse, that they have not yet done it on their own initiative. But it is better to be late than never. Thirdly, it's health-related, Prime Minister. Much have been said, both by the leader of the opposition and the member from Eastern Westmoreland, about the influx or increase in mosquito infestation. My constituency and Portmore is not there, and thankfully we have been spared. But what is certain is that we're going to have high mosquito infestation in Portmore. Well, it has started already. Prime Minister, it's a time of national emergency. The Portmore municipality has long indicated its willingness to assume that function if the Ministry of Health will delegate that authority to them to do it. As Member of Parliament, I am prepared to give some of my CDF allocation. I'm certain my colleague from Southeast St. Catherine and from East Central St. Catherine will be willing to make some contribution so that there is some local control and some efficiency in having mosquito control in that area on a regular basis. And in that regard, I plead your consideration. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member. That's the middle mic.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Prime Minister, for allowing us to speak. I come here today with a heavy heart and burdened by the devastation
Member,
that I left behind.
just
in
to
Hanover.
introduce you, member from Hanover Eastern.
Thank you. I am disappointed that efforts were made to get information with regards. I have questions. The questions are coming, but it is indeed important that I make it the public and the Eastern Hanover citizens be aware that efforts were made and pleas were made for help.
So, member, in keeping with the standing orders, what you could do is to phrase it as a question.
I have questions.
You phrase,
All right.
phrase your
I would like
statement
to-
in questions,
All right.
right?
I would like to know if the Prime Minister is aware that Eastern Hanover was badly hit by Melissa. It is a valid question.
Members, please allow.
My question.
Members,
my
please allow the
question-
member from Hanover Eastern to ask her questions.
I don't want to be bullied, respectfully. I don't want to be bullied. It is important that I say what I'm saying. I have made efforts. I sent messages to Minister Charles. None of my messages were answered. However, this morning, representatives from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security are in Hanover. We have not received anything from government as yet. We have marooned communities. With regards to the Prime Minister's statement, nothing was mentioned about those marooned communities. Communities like Chigwell, where the water is rising. Communities like Forest, Chester Castle, Lethe, Cops, and earlier I received a message that persons are marooned in New Mills. So it is indeed important that before I get to my questions, I lay these facts down. My questions are, when can we expect food and medical relief for Eastern Hanover? When can we expect air relief to residents of Chester Castle and New Mills, and also in the forest area where people are moving around on boats? Thank you.
Thank you, member. The member from St. Elizabeth Northeast.
Thank you.
Member, you turned your mic off and on again, and that is unlikely that the person sitting beside you is the next person in line. Hold on. You may have to move. The person next in line is the member from Portland East. Don't just yield. You can ask your question first, then the member from St. Elizabeth can come across to you. St. Elizabeth Northeast. So don't turn your mic off.
I won't, Madam Speaker,
Thank
but
you.
chivalry is not dead. So if my friend will, thank you. I will yield.
So member, in keeping with the standing orders, permission to speak from a seat other than your own.
Might I have permission to speak from a seat other than my own?
Yes, member.
Madam Speaker.
So remember, member questions.
Very well, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member from Eastern Portland. My questions to the Prime Minister are as follows. Madam Speaker, I wonder whether there will be any consideration to offering or engaging shelter managers on a paid basis. And I ask that against the background of persons calling me on the day of the hurricane to ask if I could help to locate shelter managers because there was no way to access particular shelters in some of my constituency. I also ask it against the background of having visited shelters in Thornton and Quickstep, which were without resources, no bedding, etc., and there were no measures in place for persons who were actually coming in. I wonder if we perhaps engage shelter managers on a paid basis, if we might have a better outcome in terms of the future preparation for these types of natural disaster. My second question has to do with the issue of housing. Would the Prime Minister be in a position to indicate or provide a timeline for persons living in northeastern St. Elizabeth to expect when they can perhaps look forward to having a roof over their heads? And I understand the exigency of the situation, but I ask the question because up to this morning, a resident from Park Mountain asked me, she said that she knew that the situation is dire, but she wanted to know when we would be able to assist her to get a house for her 5 children. So I'm asking, can the Prime Minister provide or indicate a timeline that those residents who were affected can look forward to getting housing assistance? Third, the Prime Minister spoke about connectivity and Starlink communication. Will there be any consideration to providing such connectivity to communities in northeastern St. Elizabeth? And if the answer is yes, might we have a timeline for the provision of such services? And finally, Madam Speaker, I represent a constituency that is cut off in the interiors, in the hills, where there is the likelihood that power and energy will not resume anytime soon. Will there be any consideration to putting in place special measures to provide alternative form of energy to these communities that are cut off and are unlikely to be able to be restored to the JPS grid at any particular time in the near future. And I ask again, because it has come to my attention that there are specific generators that can actually power entire communities. So will the government be looking into providing any kind of relief by way of power connectivity to these communities which have been deeply affected? Thank you.
Thank you, member. Members, remember, do not repeat yourself or repeat questions already asked. The next member is the member from, oh gosh, I forgot about you. Would you be so kind? Chivalry is not dead. However,
Madam Speaker, I will seek your permission to speak from a seat that is not my own.
And don't and then turn over to.
Madam Speaker, I don't know if karma is alive in this room, but certainly one good deed I benefit from now. I'm seeking your permission under Standing Order 18 to set the context of my question. If not permitted, then I will move forward. But I know that you use it slavishly, and I just need an explanation so that the Prime Minister don't misinterpret anything I'm saying in good faith.
So, member, I have sat here. I have sat here, and persons have made every effort not to necessarily ask their questions, regardless of the rules of the House. Member, ask your question. The Standing Order also allows, if your questions are not properly answered, to be able to ask additional questions. And member, so I spent some time on Standing Order 18.
Very well.
The purpose for Standing Order 18, personal explanation, is not one that applies to Standing Order 17 as it relates to questions and answers to questions. After the House sitting is finished, I will assist you and any new member who would like to understand what Standing Orders 18 means to elucidate that for you. Member, go to your question and I will help you after.
Madam Speaker, I tried my best. Very well. Mr. Prime Minister, I have three questions for you. One, the context of equitable distribution. Portland Eastern sits in the east of the island, but there are communities that are marooned. And I heard in your statement, you made mention of the use of technology. And while we applaud that, technology sometimes cannot be a substitute for the lived human experience. So much so that in Portland Eastern, there are communities where all the roofs were blown off. And because it's not a parish that is labeled as affected areas, albeit there are places, as in different communities that were affected, because we are a coastal parish, as you understand. Will there be a committee set up to investigate the maroon areas so that they can be attended first in time, like the other areas that have already been designated as such? In keeping with the equitable distribution, if I am to continue with the theme of dealing with human dignity, Portland Eastern is now situated as the least among us, but the spirit of the Constitution speaks about protecting the rights of the least among us. Since those who are affected that are not a part of the classification of the catastrophe that my colleagues speak of in the name parishes. It is my question to you whether you will reconsider, because of geographical location, size of the constituency, whether or not an allocation can be reconsidered on a situation ethics basis. So much so that the allocation for water for Portland Eastern, and I don't see the minister in here now, the allocation for basic, he's engaged in conversation, but the allocation for even food. Prime Minister, I did the math. It's $195 million for care packages for the 39,000 persons on the voters list alone. Now, I'm raising that to you because the public is watching. I'm in no way suggesting that you give me $195 million to feed the constituents, but I'm not being political now. The reality is, in terms of food distribution, the 1.5 million would amount to about 300 care packages at $5,000. Realistically, Prime Minister, the question I'm asking to you is in terms of the equity in distribution to ensure that persons are given the basic amenities, the basic necessities in keeping with ensuring that persons aren't excluded from the distribution. I would have raised in another forum in terms of the impossibility of government to take on the distribution by itself. It's just a consideration so that the Minister of Social Security isn't put on the back end when he's doing his best, that one understands that whatever is communicated to the government is what the government can respond to in a crisis. So a consideration that we are an island, we were all affected, and whatever mechanism is used to find the areas so the least among us is not suffering, because we are guided by the Constitution. I'm just asking you to consider that. And the last but not least, in keeping with the teachings of Jesus and situation ethics, is that we are guided to understand that at a time like this, Prime Minister, we don't see color. We don't see the political lines. And if we would communicate that to the public, that we are united on that front, then certainly when it comes to distribution, one understands that the cries that I make for Portland Eastern is as equally where the areas that are suffering from the disaster and the devastation, that they also are seen. Thank you.
Don't turn the mic off, please.
I know,
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, thank you for your indulgence.
Member from St. Andrew Southwest, please come to the mic.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, just a couple of questions that I have. The first one, when the Prime Minister spoke about the housing solutions, I was wondering whether or not, Prime Minister, for whatever the solutions are, the issues around ownership that normally attend to housing solutions for government, if those will be waived so that it will become easier for persons to access. That's one. The second question really is around the shelters. I hear you talking about how you would deal with some of the shelters. No, I was wondering if in what you were saying you also took into account that some of the places that are now shelters were not part of the Montague. That's okay. I was waiting for your undivided attention, sir. Thanks for now giving it to me. In terms of the shelters, I was wondering if you took into account the buildings or the areas that are actually functioning as shelters when you spoke about shelters, or whether you were looking at what was previously designated as shelters before. In other words, I've heard people go to one shelter, the roof blow off, go to one next shelter, the roof blow off, catch a little place over there, and that became the shelter. So I want to make sure we're clear on what you are defining as shelter, so individuals will know that wherever they are going to get the relief. And then my other two questions, one is around the economic devastation that you spoke about, and whatever the solution is going to be for individuals in terms of making something available. To remember that I think you had 3 categories of parishes that were affected. I want to remind you that there are communities that are totally decimated, even in areas where there hasn't been much damage. Yeah? And in this case, and I noticed it was included when you spoke about the agriculture and the other areas for economic devastation, but I want to mention the fishers in particular, and to ask you to make sure that when we're talking, they know that they are included. And you would know, Prime Minister, that I have to talk about the fishers because I have fishing communities, and they are totally decimated. They went back out to sea, not one pot was saved. Yeah, and many of them, no netting left. Many of them, the wharves are totally gone. And so I want to make sure that although I'm in Kingston, although we don't have that level of devastation, there are these communities that will be able to get the kind of aid. And then my final question really is around whether or not, in hindsight, Prime Minister, you believe that we could have had a more transparent and effective communication, in particular with elected representatives, MPs, councillors, and other leaders. And I heard a voice over there when someone asked a question saying, if you not listen to press conference. I believe that the Parliament of the land must have a system of communication even in this national disaster that recognizes the authority of the elected members of the National House of Parliament.
The next question will come from the member. That's Bennett. That's Ms. Bennett. Bennett. From Western Hanover. Member, apologies, that was me. Is that Azan? Member from Hanover West. No, by the member from Clarendon Northwest. Clarendon Northwest member. Don't touch the button. Clarendon Northwest. No, no, that's not her.
Permission, right? It's Madam Heather.
Member from Hanover West, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I seek permission to speak from a seat that is not assigned to me.
Permission granted, member.
Madam Speaker, many of the farmers and fisher folk down in Western Hanover were badly damaged. Crops destroyed, nets gone. My question today is what kind of resource will there be a special allocation for our farmers and fisher folks under the circumstances? My other question, I welcome the Prime Minister's presentation with respect to putting in field hospitals. He did mention that Noel Holmes Hospital was badly damaged. The outpatient ward area is no more. The maternity ward is no more. In the interim, will there be some kind of measure in place to reach our elderly and vulnerable persons out in the communities? And also, what timeline is in place to put in such field hospital, and also whether or not there will be consideration to build a new hospital for Hanover? That is, the Noel Holmes Hospital as it is now and where it is, whether consideration is being had to build it elsewhere.
Don't turn off the mic. Next is the member from Clarendon Northwest. No, the person who was seated there. The member from St. James South. Go ahead, member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, I wonder if, given the learnings we're taking from this experience, if you have given any consideration to the fact that deep rural constituencies such as South St. James, Northwest St. Elizabeth, East Central St. James may need to have a more devolved and decentralized way of managing not only disaster and recovery, but how we treat the development of deep rural constituencies. You see, when deep rural constituencies are lumped in with other constituencies as a block and treated with a one-size-fits-all kind of recovery model, you have outlying constituencies, communities that are marooned, that are treated the same way you treat the constituencies, communities at the center of the cities. Maybe it is an uncomfortable conversation, but have you given any consideration, given it's a question, to the fact that deep rural constituencies should not be allowed to wait at the back of the line for repairs to their roads, for repairs to their community centers, while we focus on the hospitals and at the middle of the parish, for example, in St. James? Yes, the hospitals need to be repaired, but should we have to wait always at the back of the line? What if we had a central repository, a group that is designed to look about our welfare even while you're looking about the welfare of those at the center? Deep rural constituencies, I believe, may even need a special department with technocrats who understand our reality, that can think about how they serve us even while others are focused on serving the centers. My second question, Prime Minister, it relates to shelter access and supply preparedness. Are you aware, Prime Minister, that deep rural constituencies were told that we should invite our residents to go to these shelters and expect to get food after the hurricane passes? What that meant for us in our experience is that communities got marooned after the hurricane passed. And so people who were in shelters from Sunday or Monday did not get food until as late as yesterday in some cases. And that when we redesign the model of preparedness, that we may have to contemplate that we have stockpiles of resources somewhere in satellite or regional offices, because we are small island developing states. We're SIDS, and SIDS have to treat with our preparedness not as a 2-day notice or a 3-day notice, but months in advance we have to prepare, and prepare especially for deep rurals that can get marooned and cut off. My other question, Prime Minister, is about the accuracy of reports versus the reality on the ground. What you presented here today, I must tell you, painted a picture I wish was the case for us in South St. James. It sounded as if there was some military precision in how we prepared for the storm, and the hurricane rather, and how we responded to it. And I want to thank everybody who helped, the JDF, the JCF, the outsiders, whomever else. But as is the case in South St. James, and it could also be because the data gaps are so wide and so glaring, that we have not seen that kind of treatment that you laid out for us here today. So we didn't see the JDF people rappelling down from ropes and bringing food to the people in these remote communities. We did not see the JDF and the JCF and the NWA and all these agencies.
The other challenge you will have, member. See, I just switched off. Are you finished your questions, member? So you'll have to move to another station. So the challenge, no. So members, as of next sitting, member from Hanover, you might as well sit, your mic is off. Your mic, St. James, you may as well sit, your mic is off. Members, as of next sitting, you will not turn your mic on until after you're recognized. I know it's a point of order when he stood up, but member, your point of order. Marshall, would you be so kind? Is it possible to utilize the per mic? Would you please take it to the member for the point of order?
Check. Madam Speaker, the member from South St. James is misleading the House, Madam Speaker. At no point and at no time in the Prime Minister's presentation did he speak about persons jumping out of helicopters, as you just said a while ago. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I understand it is a sensitive time and a sensitive period, and you're offering some latitude, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, please have the members speak honestly and follow the standing orders. Get up and ask your question. Get up and ask your question, Madam Speaker.
Another member, does another member have a point of order? No? Marshall, will you take the mic to the member from St. James? So, member from St. James South, member from St. James South.
Thank you.
You're required to ask a question. You have gotten a lot of latitude.
To ask the question.
No. In all of your discussions earlier, please get to your question without the embellishment. Member, thanks much. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Most of us appreciate English language and understand similes and metaphor, but you'll get there. No, no, Madam Speaker. No, Madam Speaker, Prime Minister, and thank you. I was speaking to the reports you were receiving. I'm certain you did not go there and collect that information yourself, but you're relying on those in the field to provide you with information so you can make the best decisions. And I'm saying that what was shared here today doesn't reflect the reality we had on the ground in South St. James. As someone who walked across the constituency from Wednesday until Sunday and returns there tomorrow, I speak as their mouthpiece to say to you, Prime Minister, that what you have received, consider, or will you consider, that it may be embellished and not truly reflective of what we're experiencing. That's a question. My next question is about the scale of the damage and inadequate allocations. And I want to thank you and thank your cabinet for considering that $10 million allocation to a constituency like South St. James. But when you get a chance, and I know you have a long list of places to go, Prime Minister, will you consider coming to South St. James and these constituencies on foot this time and see for yourself the scale of the damage? I know that data is not our strong point in Jamaica. We don't collect enough data to show you that 5 or 10 or whole communities have been wiped out. And the speaker, the leader of government business can tell you, because he's from Moko, that Moko don't exist anymore. The houses have been flat. I don't know where to start with $10 million. And I'm asking that you do not apply a one-size-fits-all budget or purse to constituencies that have been totally demolished by devastating Melissa. That you come in, not by yourself, but with the technocrats, with those from Mona Geologics, those who actually, not the politicians, they're just noise. I want you to consider, Prime Minister, to come in with the technocrats and see for yourself, because I don't know where to begin with $10 million. And my final question, Madam Speaker, to you, Prime Minister, is compensation and recognition for community responders. For me, I heard when you mentioned, Prime Minister, you know, about all of these agencies that went in and did all of these beautiful things in the constituencies, supported by the men and women on the ground. I wish for you to understand that from our perspective, it was the entire another way around. It's 180 degrees. It was the men and women from the constituencies who went in first, second, and third to clear the way so that they could come in. And I want you to consider, or will the Prime Minister consider, that the stimulus package that you proposed be thought out in a way that not only the big contractors who come in with their trucks and their tractors from parishes in St. Thomas and Kingston get the big bucks, but consider, Prime Minister, that these people who use them saw, them hoe, them machete to clear a path be given some of the big bucks too, and not just the crumbs after they have swallowed up the bulk of it. Thank you. Madam Speaker.
Now, members, you get a lot of latitude which you abuse. You get a lot of latitude which you abuse. The member, what is his name now? That's St. Ann Southeast, the member from St. Ann Southeast.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Prime Minister, for your presentation. if you'd allow me, would like to also acknowledge those involved, the first responders, especially those at community level. And this being Youth and Community Month, just to thank them for the work that they've done in this response. My questions are as follows. Given the reported preparation of the shelters and the need to ensure that shelters are a place of protection for those who do not have another place in an emergency, in a storm, in a hurricane like the one we experienced, will the Prime Minister give consideration to the building of purpose-built facilities to be used as shelters in order that the situation which we now see in places such as Blackstonnage, where the children slept on the floor, where the women slept on the desks, where one woman said she had a mild stroke in one of our shelters. Will the Prime Minister make special consideration for the building of purpose-built facilities to be used as shelters and ensure that they are properly equipped so that our people do not see shelters as a place that demeans them, but as a place that protects them? Prime Minister, I must ask, how prepared were we?
Member, hold on a moment. You're okay. Thank you, member. Continue, member.
The obvious question Jamaicans are asking, Madam Speaker, is how prepared were we, given that government agencies, government departments were competing with private citizens for critical resources at the time when the hurricane was approaching. And this was not limited to tarpaulins, it also included Starlink devices, which were being bought at the last minute by government agencies, and as such undermines the preparation and the ability of individuals to respond. And so, how prepared were we? How much of the necessary prepositioning of supplies was done in order that the preparation and the response would be adequate? Prime Minister, you spoke about the affected parishes, and a couple of the colleagues have mentioned it before. In Southeast St. Anne, we have seen that the majority of houses, especially constructed with zinc roofs, suffered tremendous damages. And I speak not only for Southeast St. Anne, I know the same holds for Southwest St. Anne. And so the designation of affected parishes, I find it problematic, and therefore would like to hear your explanation as to the criteria for determining same. It also, closely related to this, is the hubs which you spoke about. I notice there are no hubs in central Jamaica, and as such, places like St. Mary, St. Anne, Clarendon, and St. Catherine. So the question is the extent to which these hubs will serve central Jamaica, and why aren't any located in this part of the country? I couldn't agree with you more. I share your desire and your call for us to double production in the parishes that were not as affected as the western parishes. Prime Minister, can you tell the House what provisions are going to be made now? My farmers are ready to go to the fields now. My micro, small, and medium business enterprises are ready to start again now. Prime Minister, what provisions are being made now to allow them to double production in the way that you have described? We are, like you, concerned about the mental health issues affecting our communities. But our communities have also lost the ability to socialize. They have the spaces that they normally use for socialization. And so, Prime Minister, would you consider making provisions for rapid repair, not only of schools, but also of community centers, and for the provision of play spaces and sporting opportunities so that we can get our people again relaxed, having spaces to entertain themselves and to move forward in a way that will allow them to recover fully from this hurricane. And my final question, Madam Speaker, each time we have a major disaster such as this one, we get an allocation days before. Would the Prime Minister consider putting in place an automatic trigger for funds to be released to members of Parliament once there is a tropical storm, warning or something similar? You will have your chance to ask your questions.
They have no questions.
Oh, they have no questions. So, Prime Minister, may I?
No, member. Jesus. Member, thank you very much. You said that was your final question, and you wouldn't need to restate your question. Thanks, member. Next member. The member from... Members, please allow those asking questions. Members. Members asking questions, please allow them to be heard. A member from St. Catherine Northwest. Member, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Prime Minister, I wonder, sir, if you are aware that there are areas in St. Catherine that exist in operation but on the border of some of the harshest hit areas in Clarendon. One such area as Luidas Vale, and the Minister of Finances from Luidas Vale, extreme flooding. You see, you know our nephew ran for the division. No, Luidas Vale division. It's 1 second. Hold on. Luidas Vale. I ask for your protection, Madam Speaker. All right. Yes. But all right. But let me make my point. Mr. Prime Minister, the Luidas Vale division exists on the border of Clarendon.
Member from St. Catherine. Once you're not being heard, you may relax and take your seat at some. Not to worry. Not to worry. We have all the time in the world.
Yes. All right, thank you. So
allow the member to ask his question
so,
without being disturbed.
The Luidas Vale division is on the border of Clarendon. And while I can accept that 3 of the 4 were not significantly affected, that particular division had extensive damage because of its location in the hills of St. Catherine. I therefore ask the question if areas like those, while in St. Catherine, can receive some consideration because of the realities. I also ask Prime Minister that we consider specific realities of communities, because the gust of the wind was not the only damaging feature. You yourself stated the difference between Haiti and I think you said Costa Rica or Chile. The initial situation of the housing, especially for poorer communities, more poor communities, would have caused for even less wind impact to create equal damage in some of those areas. And by extension, while we are not ground zero in some of those communities, the starting point of those houses have caused for some constituencies to have had similar damage even though they were not in the center of the hurricane itself. So I ask that you consider that. Secondly, the initial response by NWA, the National Works Agency, is directed to what they term NWA roads. However, some of the essential services, like clinics and schools, are not necessarily along the NWA pathway. To that extent, while what you have announced today of giving the MPs some funding will assist to do as is necessary, for the future, I believe that there needs to be a further categorization of essential roads as versus simply NWA roads, because some of our essential services did not and does not lie on what is termed an NWA road, and the delay has caused for limited access to some of those essential services. I can speak for some of my schools that principals were delayed in getting back to school to assess and to do
Remember,
the necessary
you know better.
things.
Just ask the questions.
Yes.
What, yeah, no man, I give enough latitude. Remember, just the questions.
Yes, yes.
Because you have several members who still have questions.
acknowledge
Thank
that.
you so much, member.
Yes.
You learned something.
Mr. Prime Minister, is there a system, Mr. Prime Minister, in place for, Mr. Prime Minister, is there a system in place for social workers to do the necessary assessments and to pair families willing to take on persons in their homes? For example, in Kingston, a person may be willing to take somebody in their home for a short period of time. It would be best if there was a trained individual to make a pairing between the person in need and the person willing to volunteer to reduce the probability of negatives for persons willing to open their home. A lot of the rehabilitation, a lot of recovery would need to separate, especially some of our small children, from the realities that they're being faced with in the spaces of Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth, etc. And there are Jamaicans that have space, that have heart, that are willing to open their doors for periods of time. Is there a system of application, volunteering, and also social workers pairing so that the necessary things can be done in that way? So, Prime Minister, I saw the announcement of a Department of Volunteerism being set up, I think, in the Ministry of Culture. When will that be open for telephone calls? Is there a website up? So it will be up soon for persons to indicate. Great. Finally, Mr. Prime Minister, as a farmer who knows the pain of expecting returns and losing those returns, there are some farming-dependent communities that the trees didn't need any great gusts. They're fully damaged, fully devastated. We're seeing, we're seeing banana trees all on the ground. We're seeing sorrel that they were depending on for Christmas. We're seeing gungo. They can't get that anymore. We see pear on the ground. We see yam totally down. I didn't hear much about farming, but their recovery, their survival is totally dependent on the returns from that farming. I hear about the food package. The $5,000 package is 2 days' meal for a 3-member family. If you go to a 5-member family, possibly 1 day meal when you look at 3 pounds of flour and 3 pounds of rice. These people who might not have lost their roof, but their economic dependence, their livelihood was on farming. I can speak to many who have lost their chicken because light don't come back yet, and the freezer can't come back on. I don't need to speak for myself, I'm not the worst. I can speak for some whose chicken is now ready, and they can't kill them. and must feed them. I wonder, though they were not impacted in their homes, how are we going to act for the farmers, especially because there must be a delay between replanting and reaping. These were in close proximity to reaping. How are we going to do that? And, Mr. Prime Minister, the final thing, the CDF. Can instruction be given to the CDF to relax some of their requirements? Well, you don't hear my question. Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister, I reached out to the CDF to get a generator and a freezer for that same chicken problem. That the chicken, I knew the constituents who would not be able to purchase a generator and freezers for the chicken and their livelihood, that we could have that at a central space and they could check in their chicken and their thing like that. The CDF suggested that wasn't within the mandate. However, the same CDF will give allocation to go buy 100 little chicken for them to start over, instead of giving us some capacity to preserve their investment because for some reason a generator was not in the rules. When there is a disaster in front of us, there needs to be some capacity to say if the proposal is sensible within the context of the times, that investment can be facilitated under that particular circumstance. So those are the questions, Mr. Prime Minister.
No, Prime Minister, you have more questions? And on purpose. The member from St. James South. The member from St. James South made reference to the member from St. Andrew Northwest, not understanding similes and would learn or get there at some point in time. Just to let you know, members, as we go ahead in an effort of unity on our road to recovery, let's work, because I heard it and I've received a complaint. Turn on your mic, member, or if you would like, you can have the mic so that it can be recorded for the purpose of Hansard. Please be civil to each other in the House. The member from St. Andrew East Central. You may go ahead and ask your questions, member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Prime Minister, I welcome your commitment and I'm encouraged by your presentation. But I have significant challenges understanding the fiscal space. So I'm asking you, in light of your administration quest to pay down the debt to GDP, of which you would have paid $14 billion by the end of August, whether or not you would consider suspending that so you can create the cap space to do some of the things that you did. Second thing is, you mentioned about fast-tracking the other 50% of the island that was not severely impacted. But the infrastructure needs to be fast-tracked, and whether or not you will make funds available to fast-track the infrastructure that is required to sort of energize economic growth. And the final question is, as it relates to the Sandy Gully to which you mentioned in your presentation, the people of Kashapa are complaining bitterly about their property being compromised. Whether or not there will be any allocation to allow urgent repairs to the Sandy Gully. We share that gully, Minister, and you know the condition. So I'm asking you whether or not those funds will be redirected in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, member. Next up is the member from St. Thomas Eastern. Go ahead and ask your question, member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, I rise to ask a question in relation to two communities in Eastern St. Thomas. The Bath community. Prime Minister, the Bath community is surrounded by two rivers, the Island River and the Plantain Garden River. Now, when there rainfall or the threat of a hurricane, as you have noticed the last time, the banks of the river overflowed and threatened at least 2,000 houses in the Bath community. Also in the Bamboo River community, it is the same situation. The PGR River also affects the Bath community, and the Plantain Garden, as I said, affects both communities. There are a lot of structural damages there in terms of flooding. Last week, Sunday, I was in the community, Prime Minister, and I saw where persons had to be following the sun with their mattresses. Little children have to be sleeping on the floor. My question to you, sir, in terms of controlling those rivers, river training, what can these communities expect in terms of river training, river growing? The Rowlandsfield community as well, Madam Speaker, Prime Minister, the Rowlandsfield community is in the hills. And we got a lot of breeze in Eastern St. Thomas, although we are not as badly affected as the West. You know, we always suffer the brunt when there is an impending hurricane. I am very thankful that this time we did not get such a battering. So I'm asking, in those areas where at least 30 houses were destroyed in the hills of Rowlandsfield, what I'd like to ask, some semblance of trust, I'm asking to come back to our agencies. Just last week, persons were asking, where should they go to get registered? And I directed them to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. And they were saying, my God, again? Because they remembered Hurricane Beryl when they suffered the same fate with no sort of compensation. So I want that trust and confidence to come back to that ministry and that department so that people can be confident enough to know that their welfare will be looked about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, member. The member from St. Catharines South.
St. Mary Central.
Oh, sorry, that's new. Member from St. Mary's Central. And then last of all will be the member from St. Catharines Southeast. Oh, you turned your mic on now.
Thank you.
No, we are going to suspend the sitting at 7:20 to be able to continue. House leader will move. So if you have not yet asked your question at that time, we will suspend then. No, not for 7:20. We did not. We did not. So we can do it now or. Mm-hmm. Member, go ahead. In keeping with the standing orders, we suspend at 7:20 if we're going to sit beyond 7:30, and I believe we will. Go ahead,
Thank
member.
you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, I know it is a difficult road ahead, and you can count on my support in terms of how we rebuild, provided that all the necessary provisions are put in place to ensure transparency and to ensure accountability. Yes. Yes. Right. Madam Speaker, some of what I saw leading up to the storm in terms of just the level of commitment from shelter managers, I feel it is important that we do something to honor the role they play as volunteers, and I hope you'll consider, we are looking at what we can do in Central St. Mary to honor their work, and I hope we can consider something as a government. The other side of crisis, as you mentioned, Prime Minister, is opportunity. And a lot of great cities across the globe were built out of crisis. Chicago and the Chicago fire, for example. I want to know what mechanisms are being put in place to ensure that the landowners, the people in these areas that have been devastated, that they're not left behind when we go in to develop, and that prosperity is not only experienced by one set of people in these areas. Madam Speaker, even though Central St. Mary was spared the brunt of the disaster, there are still many areas that were affected, Albion Mountain being one. In January, Mr. Prime Minister, when you toured the constituency, we showed you a fording leading to Marlborough, which half of the road pretty much was compromised. That area has been further compromised, and it creates significant difficulty in terms of passing. In fact, last year, November, a taxi driver, while trying to navigate, his vehicle was washed away and he passed away. He perished in the rain. So I'm hoping that as we look at the areas that are priority, that consideration will be given to areas, to St. Mary, to areas in the country that also were vulnerable prior to the storm and where the vulnerabilities have been exacerbated. Prime Minister, I know that Starlink devices have been deployed to the vulnerable areas, and I commend that. But in St. Mary and in many other parishes and constituencies, we are also cut off from communication with the capital. In fact, I found out that we had Parliament today because I drove into Kingston yesterday to check on my house in Kingston, having been in my house in Islington for the last 2 weeks, preparing for the storm. And so I know people in MPs in Portland and in St. Thomas and in other parts of St. Mary might have a similar challenge. I hope consideration will be given to equipping all so that we can communicate equally with the capital. Yes, in terms of the Support Jamaica platform, Prime Minister, in a time of crisis such as this, I don't think we should create a mechanism that may cause some people to feel that they need to avoid. I'll give an example. Many people, yes, many people have strong connections to schools and communities, and that's where they identify. So I want to know whether the Support Jamaica platform will allow people to indicate where they want their contribution to go. So if a man wants to designate a contribution to St. Mary High School, for example, can he log on to the platform and indicate that that is where he wants his support to go? The final thing, Mr. Prime Minister, and yeah, man, no, we're not talking about, but Mr. Prime Minister, the bridge from Marlborough, the bridge that connects Albion Mountain with Port Maria being cut off, I'm wondering whether there's any update on when, because a number of roadways and bridges have been compromised because of the hurricane, and I'm wondering whether any consideration will be given to fast-tracking just providing support and repairs to those. Thanks.
Thank you, member. Member from St. Catherine. Southeast.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, thank you for that presentation. I have just 3 questions. One, can you confirm that 6 field hospitals were donated to Jamaica during COVID recently? Can you confirm the status? Six field hospitals were donated to Jamaica or built by the government. Can you, this was just a few years ago, can you comment on the status of these hospitals, if they, including the 3 from U.S. Southern Command, which are completely mobile, are up, disassembled, destroyed, or returned? And if we have field hospitals in Jamaica now, why aren't we deploying them immediately to the disaster areas rather than waiting for a shipment from Spain? Thanks.
Thanks, member.